That was a very long introduction. I'm trying to make this a little bit short and sweet. I have many slides, but I just want to frame it up a little bit before we get started into the material and also what SAP is doing with respect, again, to the potential and where we are overall, from our perspective at least, when it comes to AI. I think it is not a question at all that, and Mr. Wissing was just talking about it, is the tremendous productivity and efficiency gains and also creativity and everything else, right, that comes specifically in generative AI. And Morgan Stanley, it's a little bit an old number, right? It's just like 4.1 trillion in additional incremental, it's not like lift and shift, incremental value that we're going to see created through only generative AI in the next couple of years. And that's roughly the GDP of Germany, right? So just take Germany, the entire GDP of Germany, just put it on top again, we know a little bit what we're talking about. Now the challenge is, and we have seen this last year, or also this year, was a very hot summer in AI. Everybody thought, like, because of these amazing zero-shot capabilities, right? You type a naive question, you get a fantastic result. Like, adopting this in the enterprise is super fast. But it was a recent study by McKinsey, I don't know, it's like 3 weeks old or something, that only 13% of companies around the world have adopted more than one AI scenarios used productively by their employees. So there's still a lot of upside that we see. And actually all the banks like Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and all those folks, they are updating also their forecasts. They all thought a majority of adoption will happen actually half year 224. Now they're moving all their predictions from mass adoption of AI into half year 225, right? The problem really is, I was never a fan of this. Everybody thought this goes fast, super fast, but the problem usually is, human beings, we love linear thinking, right? We usually overestimate what can be accomplished in 1 year, we totally underestimate what's possible in 10. So, and that is a little bit why, at least I was not surprised. And actually, when we look at the next slide, we see also, you know this thing from Gartner, right? The AI hype cycle. And usually it starts, new technology comes and emerges, and it goes up. And the peak is called the peak of inflated expectations. Most of the hype topics disappear because they are really fast. And then if you accelerate, right, you know what happens, disappears in oblivion. Some technologies actually get on this downhill slope, and this is actually where generative AI is now. Everybody, and it's called the trough of this valley there, it's called the trough of disillusionment. That sounds very sad, right? It's like, oh, is it over, right? It's game over. Now all these AI guys sitting in the corner crying, really being totally disillusioned. No, the name is a little bit misleading. This is the phase where the real stuff is happening usually, right? Where the hard work is happening before the technology reaches, on the right side, what we call the plateau of productivity. And this phase that we are now going through will inform more critical thinking, will lead to a lot of innovation, optimization, smaller models, more optimized models that run faster, the energy consumption will go down, and much, much more. Now the question is, why is that actually the case? So what is holding us back currently from higher, faster adoption in the enterprise? Because we all want to work more efficiently, more productively, and use all these tools, right? Now, actually turns out it's actually hard. It's harder than expected despite this amazing technology that we have now at our disposal. And we talk about this topic, data and regulation. We'll talk a little bit later about the EU AI Act and a couple of other things. But what is really also, it's not just data privacy and GDPR, but it's also bringing the data together. Companies that did their homework, bringing the data of various lines of businesses, for example, together, have an easier life. We usually say garbage in, garbage out in AI. And that is still something that usually holds us back. The second piece is these limitations of large language models. Yes, they are fantastic as they are, but they are not trained on your company data. They're a little bit outdated. If you don't use the right techniques, they start to hallucinate, and we really don't like hallucinations. And then there's so many cool new LLMs or other foundational models coming around all day long. I think every week we have now, I don't know, 50 or so. You need to test them all out, right? And like, what are the new capabilities that are coming? Managing this complexity became really hard because there's so much stuff going on, and just keeping up with that is difficult. And they are also not good on structured data. They get a little bit better now with math and with reasoning and so on and so forth, but still, lots of enterprise data is stored in tables, is described in columns and structured data and so on. And turns out large language models are fantastic for the unstructured world. They really suck at the structured world, in which usually we all sit on, like SAP systems. And then finally, now it's very simple usually to start with this little POC that blow off the CEO's socks in order to the C-suite, where you show a little chatbot where you put all your documents in. And for 10 documents, it's really simple. You can do this in an afternoon. But now think about this 100 documents. It's already harder. 1,000 documents, if you think about a larger corporation, is really hard because the retrieval accuracy drops log linearly down with the numbers of documents that is in there, and that's a huge challenge. You need to invest and do a lot of engineering work to really keep this up, because you can all solve this, but it turns out to be challenging. And then think of multilinguality. Maybe some companies are here that not only operate in Germany, but maybe also Brazil or China or India, and then dealing with these different languages and bringing this all together. It's complicated. So these are some of the adoption challenges that we see with customers. And I have not talked yet about legal challenges, IP, copyrights, indemnification, and many more things that hold the adoption back, and it's up on us to work through these complexities. Now, what we do at SAP is we are introducing and dealing with these challenges on the application layer. So we really try to hide all these technical complexities from our customers and introduce AI along the value chain, no matter whether it's on finance, supply chain, HR, sales, service, marketing, and of course also IT and cross-functions that you usually find in a company. And I just wanted to really show you some of the capabilities we have already introduced in our products, to give you just an idea. We usually start with who actually has pain points, right? And just pick HR here, do the same for everything else. You usually have problems and challenges in a company. Talent shortage, you have too many HR tickets, right? People are making all these tickets there in ServiceNow, and you really don't want to, nobody wants to create these tickets, and nobody wants to work on these tickets, but you have to do it to answer all your questions. And of course, you need to hire, upskill, everybody needs to learn AI. And of course, AI is a solution with generative AI that can help you in recruiting, it can help you in learning, and you see some of the benefits of some of the AI capabilities we introduced to our SAP SuccessFactors product to really help with the productivity. For example, writing job descriptions or helping with compensation discussions instead of fiddling all the data if you're a manager, right? And sit in front of an employee and have a discussion about a potential salary increase and facilitate that discussion with the help of AI. Here's one example, director of the product. This is SuccessFactors, and then you can use our generative AI copilot. We call it Joule, which actually is not just the structured data that you can talk to in your HR application and for your workflows, but you can actually bring it together with all your HR policies, like travel policies, mobility working policies, parental maternity leave policies, think of these kinds, and really contextualize it and make it really specific for the user to give them an answer, for example, to avoid tickets, to ask, like, what's on my pay slip, or what applies to me when I want to do a certain a life event. And we actually can massively reduce, both for the employee trying to find that information, as well as, of course, for the HR department answering all these questions by using generative AI directly in the product. It's really, really useful. And of this kind, we have now across the SAP portfolio, so most of the value chain covered, 80 of such generative AI use cases, and they add tremendous value. You saw it maybe on the slide from the CHRO, only the HR cases for a company of around 2,000 people can easily save you like 500,000 euros or dollars every year by deploying those features when they are being used in a roughly 2,000-sized company. And what we also, of course, and we not only do this from a process, so what we have is also, of course, we do this not only since yesterday with generative AI. SAP has roughly 27,000 customers, including big brands like Coca-Cola, Bavaria Munich, Barclays, Döhler, PwC, Gibson, and so on, using this in the various forms and shapes with capabilities that I've just mentioned. Now, what we really do is we start first and foremost not with the technology, we start with the outcome. And one is really on the top. We start with Joule and the embedded AI all across the business processes. Because you see down there, we partner with many technology partners. We select the best technologies to produce the right experience for our end users, for our customers. And let's start actually with the first layer, which is Joule. So Joule is our generative AI copilot, which brings all the various information pieces in the company together. We designed it in a way, please see animation, because it's first birthday for Joule, so my team told me that it was not coming. It's not coming? Huh? Maybe it's coming. It's a late birthday. Here we go. So we introduced it last year. We started with SuccessFactors. Meanwhile, we introduced it to the majority of SAP applications. And we are not did it like, oh, one is for finance, and one is for HR, and one is for supply chain, but we made it in a way that it actually connects all these dots. So no matter in which SAP application you are, let's say you're in an HR application, but you ask, like, where's my delivery stuck in transportation or in the warehouse, Joule is intelligent enough to figure that question out and pull it from across the enterprise, because we have this vision to break down the silos in the company through generative AI and Joule as the new interface that you can use with natural language. So what we do is, so we have usually, by end of this year, in Joule, we have already 80 of the most used tasks in the enterprise already covered. And what you see basically also here is it's not just question answering, but it's really a visual interaction with the system, no matter whether it's analytics or transactions or certain, of course, retrieval tasks, approvals, and many of the things you usually have to deal with in the enterprise. But of course, we also solve the challenge, for example, on multilinguality. So really introducing this, that you can naturally talk in Portuguese or in Spanish and German and Japanese and all those languages already out of the box without the customer actually training something or adapting anything. It's designed in a way that it works for the enterprise out of the box to avoid some of the challenges I've mentioned before. And it's not just in isolation. Amongst our many partnerships, the one I'd like to mention here is the one with Microsoft. All of you, of course, are also looking towards Microsoft 365 Copilot or GitHub Copilot, and we're bringing this together. We're bringing this together because many customers asked me, like, how many Copilots do I need from different vendors and so on and so forth, right? Or 2 or 3 and so on. And the answer is simple. You need 2. You need these 2. Because you got all the productivity, the Office and the Excel stuff covered with the Microsoft thing. You got all the other rest of the structured world done with the SAP Joule Copilot. And bringing it together really allows you to chat, for example, with Joule and SAP and get your team members back. But then actually, and that's actually our first agent scenario, then delegate certain tasks to Microsoft Teams, for example, or bring SharePoint documents back into Joule to reason over them in conjunction with your SAP data. And then actually also the other direction works also Microsoft Teams, and then casual users can take out of Microsoft Teams, for example, and can access SAP data and workflows in the same way. So here's an example for this. Now, that's the relevant part. So this is the experience we're designing, out of the box, embedded in the application. And this is what this is what we do for the most part. Of course, there's a technical element to this. And this is where our AI foundation is coming in on what we call the SAP Business Technology Platform, which essentially deals with all this heterogeneity and all the complexity of these many large language models, NVIDIA GPUs, their hyperscalers, like all the various techniques, tools, and libraries you need to use in order to pull off these experiences. And at the heart of this foundation is what we call the Generative AI Hub. It's actually there. It's the only platform in the world today you don't have to, right, if you want to consume all these models, in particular the frontier models, OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini models, Meta models, Mistral, it's the only platform today in the market where you can seamlessly switch between all of them. Right? You don't have to individually contract with Microsoft or with AWS or GCP to get access to these models. They get them all on one platform so you can easily switch between whenever a new model is coming out and so on and so forth. It's really, really simple. And then, of course, it can be used. It's first of all the basis for all our experiences I showed before. But as a side product, almost, is you can build own things that are tightly connected with the SAP system. For example, by tapping, not just with security and so on, really into the data model of SAP. Now, how do we do this? What we do is we use what we call a knowledge graph. Somebody here talked about knowledge graphs? Knowledge graphs is actually a really old technology. It's a really old technology. It was invented 20 years ago by a guy called Tim Berners-Lee, who also by accident invented the internet. And it was really a more, for the most part, sorry if I now step on somebody's toes, it was for the most part really a theoretical concept. It was never really coming to fruition. But now with large language models, it's actually an opportunity semantically describe a model and ground a large language model to do something useful with it. It's the glue to provide between natural language and a structured data model with SAP. And in the case of SAP, this knowledge graph is huge. 450,000 ABAP tables, 80,000 views, 7.3 million fields or columns, right, of those database tables, all linked, semantically linked and connected with each other. So you can use this graph to ground a large language model in the reality of the SAP system to then make SQL queries, for example, or ask the system something, or just explain to the large language models the structure of the SAP systems to then do something with that in a useful fashion. It's a really, really powerful technology that we are very proud of. And of course, then customers and partners are building on this. We have meanwhile 100 partners who are engaged on this AI foundation on BTP using some of these technologies in one way or another. Some of them might be here. Now, I want to close off with responsible AI. This is really dear to my heart. We had already since 2018 an AI ethics policy, and that stated 6 values. Earlier this year, we expanded this to now the 10 core principles of AI ethics from the UNESCO, like safety and security, right to privacy and data protection, human oversight, transparency and explainability. And what we have established to ensure these qualities already 6 years ago is we established a very comprehensive AI ethics governance and steering committee, where people like our general counsel, our chief diversity and inclusion officer, data privacy officer, and all those people are in, and every of the cases that we are producing goes through this AI ethics steering committee. And because we had this all in place and the EU AI Act came out, we were able to sign this AI pledge, which is a voluntary commitment to already do all the measures, right, upfront for the EU AI Act. We could just do it. So if you take SAP's AI capabilities, we have cleared all of that out already so that you don't have to deal with all these questions. Is this EU AI Act compliant, EU access compliant, GDPR compliant, and so on, because these qualities are coming with the AI capabilities in the product. And it's not only that's a manual one, we also work on technologies. One of them, I take again HR, is text analyzer. Because one of the things we know are inherent to large language models is bias. Right? They are full of biases. Everybody has seen examples and so on in the internet, right? And you can do something about these biases, because if you prompt these things in a clever way, you can nudge the large language models to not exhibit as much bias as they would do if you don't take any countermeasures. Like taking pronouns, for example, out of the prompt. Him, her, his, right? That already shows in our data that it biases more. If you take names in your prompt, like Fritz or Heinz, it biases towards elderly people versus Kevin and Justin. It leans more towards younger people. right? So you need to avoid these things, you need to be aware of those things, and we provide a ton of engineering work across 22 attributes like profanity, related text, racial, gender, disabilities, sexual orientation bias, and many more, to really make sure that the output or the recommendations that are coming from the SAP system are actually as much bias-free as possible, and sometimes we even see improvements up to 100% when we do it this way. And on the next slide, we also then provide this technology as part of our solutions, and it makes then suggestions, because even we as humans, we are full of biases, as we know. So sometimes these texts that we write are also not perfect, and then you can use AI to help write, for example, better texts in the respective solution. And that's a very high-level overview of what we're doing and the challenges that we are seeing when it comes to the adoption of AI in the enterprise. And yeah, I hope you liked it, and thank you very much for listening today, and thank you.